this is an abundance of riches this season. I mean, I really think in its variety and its regionalism. I mean, we try and pay attention to where we are. We're Colorado Springs. We're in the West. We have some Western flavor, some native homegrown flavor. We've got Nikola Tesla in Colorado Springs in 1899. We've got Waddy Mitchell, bringing a cowboy Christmas carol right to our town. But we also have an international flavor with Thaddeus Phillips, Capsule 33, with Anton Chekhov, with Boeing set in Paris, with the Inspector General, and of course with William Shakespeare, The Merry Wives of Windsor. So I'm very, very excited about this season. I couldn't be more excited. I think this is the best. This really feels to me like what TheatreWorks is, what it should be. Something old, something new, something rich. Each play will be a real adventure. We really bookend our season with classics, with Shakespeare at the beginning of the season and Chekhov at the end of the season. We really launch ourselves with Shakespeare, and this year it goes back to the park. And not only just to the park, but to Rockledge Ranch, which is this beautiful historic facility, an idyllic place just outside of Garden of the Gods Park. And it's a beautiful setting with a lake, and it's beautiful for this play that we're going to do, Merry Wives of Windsor, a charming comedy about village life. And we think that the setting and the play will meet perfectly in Rockledge Ranch. Every single performance we do of Shakespeare will be in our festival tent, in our signature tent, out there at Rockledge Park with the banners flying and Falstaff romping around, trying to make out with a couple of women and failing miserably and very happily. It's a very funny play, and I think it'll have a lot of charm out there on the site. Be unbeatable. There's only one Shakespeare play this year. We think that we'll put all our eggs into one basket, and the basket is Merry Wives of Windsor and Sir John Falstaff out of Rockledge Ranch, and I think it'll just be beautiful there. Really will be a great summer evening. We always want to do something new at TheatreWorks. We want to do something old, and we want to do something new. And the new, in this case, is a world premiere of a play that we're going to create, about Nikola Tesla. I am Nikola Tesla. As you may know, Tesla is the most famous visitor that our town ever had. And a really historic occasion when he arrived here in 1899 with funding from the Astors and an opportunity and an invitation really from the Colorado Springs Electric Company to have all the power he wanted. And he wanted a lot of power. He was here and built a marvelous energy tower somewhere near the Deaf and Blind School. We don't know still exactly where that was, although we have some pictures of it. And he set up his fabulous lab, and he put a pole up 150 feet in the sky, and he was wanting to come here because of the free power and because of the amazing lightning. And he was going to make lightning, and he drew all this power, and he was zapping out lightning and from his lab, and he was the mysterious man around town. Everybody knew him. He was this wizard, this magician, this legendary guy who had created alternating current, this Serbian guy with white gloves and mysterious eyes. He succeeded in drawing so much power that he blacked out the town for 4 days. He just killed the place. And anyway, it was a fabulous adventure, and we thought we would write a play about this. We thought we should. This is going to be in conjunction with the library's All Pikes Peak Reads Festival, which we have teamed up with, partnered with for the last 6 years. And they're featuring readings and a whole event, cultural event, communal event around inventions with Nikola Tesla as our star. So we're creating the play kind of to go along with that, and we're very excited about that. We think there's going to be a lot of heat, a lot of voltage. I think we're going to play into the myth as well as the real. I mean, this is a theater. You know, this isn't just going to be a biopic. We will take the Tesla story in it, both its realistic fact and its mythic dimensions. I think we have the license to do that, and I think it would be silly to refuse that invitation. We're going to be doing a new show about Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin's Tea Party. It'll not only include, but it will feature Christopher Lowell, who is, by all accounts, the best Ben Franklin that anybody has ever seen anywhere. He's really good. He dedicated his life. He knows more about Ben, is able to play Ben, lives, breathes, eats Ben, and is wonderful. And we're going to create this show around Ben Franklin and in his years from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitutional Convention, about those 15 years. And Ben, as you know, was a active participant in the Declaration. He even wrote parts, consulted with Thomas Jefferson. And then he was the grand old man of the Constitutional Convention later. And we're going to rely on this period for this show. And we're going to invite representatives from the cable news stations. They'll be fictional, but they will bear marked resemblances to people that you know and that you see nightly. And they will come and ask Ben a number of leading questions about this period in our history, which means so much to all of us right now. And Chris will have to face this withering attack from CSNBC, Fox News, and every talk radio and everything else. So this will be anything but genteel Tea Party, but I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll be a great time for everybody involved. And we might even learn something about American history in the process. Again, in the world of the new, we have Thaddeus Phillips coming in to do a show called Capsule 33. This is a one-person show, but it's a miracle of stagecraft. The Denver Post called Thaddeus a stage magician, and indeed he is. This is a play that actually also involves a little bit of Nikola Tesla, but is about a Serbian astrophysicist living in a Tokyo tower, the famous Pod Tower, that was scheduled for destruction. This was at its time a very innovative tower where people lived in tiny little pods and almost like a pup tent. And it had everything you needed in this tiny little pod. But eventually it was scheduled for destruction. It didn't quite work out. And this guy, the Serbian physicist, Milo, decides to go down with his pod. He's a very unhappy, depressive character. But on his way to self-destruction, he meets a rubber duck, Fumio, and they end up having a series of adventures that's a little bit like Tintin for grown-ups. And it's fantastic. It's just a fantastic play. And brilliantly, Thaddeus does these brilliant things with his pod, which he brings on stage, and which becomes a bathtub, a rocket ship, a skyscraper, almost anything that you want it to become. He's amazing what he does with this thing. And I'm thrilled that we're able to bring Thaddeus here. He's had an international career in Europe and in South America, and it's wonderful to have him come to Colorado Springs to do his show. Another new show, which combines the classic, the old, and the new, which is one of our favorite things to do, is that we've invited one of America's best-loved cowboy poets, Waddie Mitchell, to come and to us and to create, really, a completely new Western adaptation of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, the greatest Christmas story ever written by any account, and almost a ritual in our lives. I mean, we kind of can't get by with Christmas without a Christmas Carol. It's with us all the time. And it's just asking for, I think, a cowboy interpretation. And Waddie's the guy to do it. He has such a flavor of his own, and such he's a cowboy himself. I mean, he rides the range. He knows the territory, and he's a wonderful gift for language. And he's the perfect guy to take Ebenezer and put him on a ranch, and with that poor, overworked hand, Bob Cratchit. And he just doesn't know, Ebenezer, that it's Christmas Eve and that he's going to be in for a Dickens of a night. Waddie can sit up there in front of a crowd, tell a story, recite a poem, and he just has this hypnotic grip on the audiences. Charles Dickens used to recite Christmas Carol too. That's how he made his living. He made more money reciting Christmas Carol than anything he did in his life. And it's a story that's meant to be read aloud. It's meant to be told. And so we're going to have Waddie tell the story. But Waddie's going to tell it in his own language. He's going to reset it and put it out there on the range and give it some real cowboy flavor, and I think it'll be very special. We'll bring some musicians in. We'll bring a few other actors in too. So Waddie will not only rewrite it, but he'll perform it. He'll be the star. We have in the winter, we are going to do what effectively is the Colorado premiere, actually a rather old French farce called Boeing, Boeing. This was written in actually the 1960s, and it was written in the age of the fantasy world of jets. This tells the story of a Parisian architect named Bernard, who has a very successful life in Paris and is dating 3 air hostesses, three of his fiancées. Each one of them thinks they're the girl. He manages to cleverly organize his life according to the jet timetables. This was in the mythical world when every jet, took off and arrived absolutely on time. And so with his timetable in hand, he's able to very successfully negotiate these 3 lovely air hostess girlfriends of his. It all goes horribly wrong, however, when a friend of his arrives from the country and wants to be helpful, and a fast new jet is introduced, which messes up all the timetables, and so you can predict that chaos is going to ensue. There are a lot of doors, there's a lot of girlfriends in each bedroom, there's a fabulous maid. We saw this in London. It was revived a couple of years ago in London. And it was and then it came to Broadway. It was the funniest thing we saw in our whole London tour. And we were just on the floor. And I just think it's a beautifully, deliriously silly play. Charming, sexy, funny, witty, and delightful. And we're going to do this, and I think we can make it fly pretty high. The Inspector General, the student production, is a play by Nikolai Gogol featuring a whole town, a whole Russian village, full of corrupt bureaucratic officials who are scared to death by the imminent visit of the Inspector General, who is going to check out their practices. And then they get even more terrified when they learn that a mysterious stranger has shown up 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and they're convinced that he's really the Inspector General. He's not. He's kind of a wild and crazy guy. He's kind of a lunatic, but they don't know that. So put those two things together and you get classic mayhem. And it is a wonderful production. It's a wonderful play. And I think our students will bring real delight to it. The Seagull is Chekhov's first big hit. And it was the first big hit of the Moscow Art Theater when it was premiered in 1895. And this is the play that really launched the modern theater as we know it. This was the Big Bang back in 1895 with Stanislavski, the Moscow Art Theater, and Anton Chekhov teaming up to create an entirely new kind of theater, a theater that's still with us, that's really influenced modern theater and modern acting and our whole idea of what truthful, exciting, beautiful stage life ought to be. And so I'm very pleased to be able to be doing this play. When The Seagull was premiered in Moscow, it stunned its audiences, and it was so successful that they ended up putting the emblem of the seagull on the Moscow Art Theater stage curtain. So the seagull was forever after the symbol of the Moscow Art Theater, and the Moscow Art Theater under Konstantin Stanislavski became the symbol of modern theater, really, for all of us. It's kind of the real source. It's the inspiration that we all go back to. So I'm thrilled that we're doing The Seagull at last. That'll happen in the spring. We're very excited about next season. I think it's the most varied season that we've ever created in TheatreWorks history, and that's saying something.